Hong Kong and speak to Ross Feingold. He's a political risk analyst for Asia. Ross, what do you make of what is happening? Because so far as we can see, these protesters have received one major concession from the Hong Kong government. The bill, that extradition bill that they didn't like, which could potentially have sent people to stand trial in mainland China, that's not been fully withdrawn, but in its current form, Carrie Lam says it's dead. Are these protesters going to get any more out of the government?
For now, it seems no. The government is not going to give in on some of the other issues. She's, at least as of now, she's not going to resign, but that could suddenly change. The government has not agreed to an independent investigation into police action. They say there's an existing mechanism to investigate police activities, and they want to utilize that mechanism rather than have an independent panel. And some of the other demands, such as more direct democracy in Hong Kong, these have been discussed and fought over in the public space starting 5 years ago when some of these same protesters occupied parts of downtown Hong Kong. So the short answer is no, and that's why the protests continue to go on. And we see all the stakeholders, whether it's the protesters, the Hong Kong government, the central government in Beijing, companies in Hong Kong, we're all getting involved and trying to change and adjust their strategies as these protests continue to take place every weekend.
Ross, what do you make of the increasing narrative coming from Beijing that it's foreign forces who are influencing these pro-democracy protests? Do you see any evidence of that? Do you hear any chatter that could possibly back that up?
Well, the reality is very much more nuanced than that. Some of the leaders of pro-democracy parties, civil society, non-government organization leaders in Hong Kong, especially in the years since the Occupy Central protests in 2014, have visited the United States or the United Kingdom or Taiwan and other countries to share their experiences, to give speeches, to meet with other non-government organizations, other social movements. Does that mean that foreign funding or other types of forces are behind these events? No, but have these organizations here in Hong Kong met and established relationships with foreign governments or foreign NGOs? That's true, and then it shouldn't be surprised that the official media or government spokespeople in China will then portray this as foreign forces. But no, that's not an accurate accusation to say foreign forces are what's causing people in Hong Kong to protest.
Now, with Hong Kong being such an important financial center, not only in that part of the world, but right across the globe, now that you've traveled there, because when we speak to you, you're all over that part of Asia. Now you've arrived in Hong Kong. Are you meeting people who are telling you we simply can't do business the way we have been doing because of what's happening on the streets, because of the disruption that that's causing?
It's a good question. There are a couple of ways to look at it. One is sort of over the medium to long term. Is Hong Kong a place, for example, where companies can continue to have a regional headquarters, multinational companies? Many of them have their Asia-Pacific headquarters here in Hong Kong for the access to China, for the access to professional services such as financial, legal, and accounting services. And Hong Kong has an excellent reputation for being able to play that role. So businesses have to reassess, is this the place that we could continue to invest, build out our teams? But that's the medium and the long term. The short term are the more urgent questions, such as, can I come to Hong Kong for a business meeting next week? And I get a lot of inquiries about that. And it's a valid concern from businesses whether or not they should make those trips, or instead you ask your Hong Kong counterpart to come visit you somewhere else, or you just have your meeting by phone call or video conferencing. So that's a big problem for Hong Kong, because if they can't continue to play that role, whether it's the short or the long term, obviously that will be very damaging to the Hong Kong economy. And then there's also the questions about pressure from China. And we've seen that in the last few days with Cathay Pacific, which is, everyone knows, it's a major airline based here in Hong Kong. They were ordered via a circular from the aviation authorities in China not to allow staff who've been arrested during protests or who've otherwise made public statements in support of the protesters to fly on flights into China. And Cathay Pacific immediately said, we will adhere to the request of the Chinese authorities. We have no choice. They're the regulator. Okay. So we do see that the commercial space is now very much impacted by these events, but it's very hard for them to predict what will happen, what kind of reactions or pressure points will come, whether it's from protesters who say, let's boycott a company that's too friendly to China, or the Chinese or Hong Kong governments informing companies that we expect you to take certain actions in response to these events.
Ross, we always appreciate your analysis. Thanks very much indeed. Ross Feingold speaking to us from Hong Kong.